Some of what was said is in our control. For instance, how do we keep a learning environment clean? What do staff do? What do students do? I think that's something that's in our control and we need to just focus on right away. The thing around the smoking connects in a somewhat similar way to the nutrition piece. I mean, there's pretty strict legislation even around the whole notion of smoking and age and school properties and all the rest. And we do need to do a good job of ensuring that, again, we're promoting health, which is first and foremost and most significant as far as I'm concerned, but then we're also monitoring the expectations. So thank you for that. And the last whole piece of information that you talked about is connected to the conversation I had earlier. Like, for instance, I'm not saying anything that you don't know, but I wonder, back in the 50s when many of our buildings were built, or like I said, some are in the 20s, but I'll just use the 50s because we have a huge number of schools in that range. I don't know why they didn't believe in windows that do the things we need them to do. Have you ever thought about that? Like, our schools are dark. And we're not alone. That's not a Hamilton thing. It's a time when all the architecture looked a certain way. And then I know some of you go to Waterdown, which of course in this group of schools that are here today is quite new in comparison and is getting newer. Well, what do we know? What do we know? What I mean by that is that there's an addition that's being built, for those of you who don't know that. Well, what do we know in 2011 is natural light makes a huge difference to kids' learning. We actually have research on this. You see what I mean? So our problem is we can't click our fingers and change our reality overnight, but we have to work through a process that gets us to a different place so that we can figure out, and it's never going to be perfect. Again, I'm not going to tell you a story, but we can figure out how to work through some of that stuff called natural light. Wider hallways where there can be some social spaces. Social spaces are important. I heard it from that group. Building relationships is what it's about. And in some of our schools, the hallways are so thin that you're all jammed in like sardines when I walk through at the change of class time. You see where I'm going here? So I don't want to give you the wrong impression. We're not going to be able to click the fingers and make it all different in a heartbeat, but we at least are trying to say, we got to do something, and your insights are going to help us. So when you're worried about having no voice, even though these groups that we're talking on this side who told us about learning spaces, you're going to help us when we think about some of the changes that have to come.